Only mode.
So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you are in the world. My name is Bill Groot, and I'm going to be your host for today's first session to our Expert Week. This is our first Expert Week, and we're doing it on ALM QC. This is the first time we're doing this, so you need to be patient with us. We're going to do some good things, maybe some wrong things, but hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have everything ironed out and ready to go. For our first session, ALI setup and integrating with development, we have Miroslav Novik, who is an ALI functional architect, and he's going to run you through this first presentation. During the session, you can go into the question area to submit your questions. You are all on mute right now, so you can just submit your questions. And even afterwards, if you still have questions, you'll be able to submit them into our forums. This session will be recorded, and afterwards you can also listen to the recording and then submit your questions later. So we're ready to go, and Miroslav, it's over to you.
Thank you, Bill, a lot for a brief introduction. So can you see my screen and can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So hello, everybody. In my today's presentation, I will focus on ALI setup and integration of ALM with development environments. I will start my presentation with a brief introduction of ALI, which stands for Application Lifecycle Intelligence Technology. HPALI, it's actually a technology, it's not a product. It's available in HPALM Manager and also in HPALM. To briefly summarize or characterize ALI, it extends traceability to development systems and development tools. Thanks to ALI, you can see in ALM information about code, builds. You can see in real time what developers are up to, what they are working on. And this information is linked with the traditional content of HPALM, with tests, defects, requirements, and releases. This means that you can see information coming from the development in context. And this is very, very useful for all the stakeholders involved in the development lifecycle. So not only developers or architects who have very deep knowledge of the code and build processes, but everybody else, like managers, business analysts, they all can understand what's happening in the development, assess impact of changes because the information is connected to relevant artifacts in HPALM and is presented in context. So as I said, traceability, this is a key feature in ALI. There are others, but now I would like to focus on traceability and highlight a few more facts. The traceability is established automatically, which means that we do not ask you to manually enter additional information and manage this traceability manually. It's done automatically. ALI connects to your source code repositories and build servers and obtains information from there automatically and links it to the information you have in ALM. So specifically about code changes, ALI will read from source code repositories information about all the commits, about all the changes that's happening there. So we will know about every single changed file. We will know who did it, which files were changed in a commit, amount of changed files and lines. Similarly for builds, we will connect to your build servers or CI/CD systems, whatever you call them, and we will obtain information about the build, basic attributes like build status, when the build was started, and so on, but also the content of the build, which means code changes. So typically some code changes will be involved in the build, which at the end produces some build artifact, and all this information is again captured, linked together, and linked with the right context in ALM. Apart from this, we will read also development metrics. So information about code coverage and unit tests will be collected, and via code changes, it will be again linked to the one model managed in ALM, which describes your plans, requirements, user stories, and defects, and also this information coming from the development systems. Via requirements and defects, this information is connected to releases, and also for releases we will show you some interesting summaries. In HP Agile Manager, there is additional notion of applications, users, and teams. So there you can also see the breakdowns by applications, filtered by particular Agile Manager users, but this is really in the context of Agile Manager, not ALM, so I will not describe this in any detail further. Before describing actually how to configure ALI, and I will share with you some best practices, I would like to highlight key components which play important role in the ALI ecosystem, because understanding the full picture, understanding the flows, it will be much simpler to understand also the configuration. Typically, the development starts with creating some code. So it's the developer in his IDE, whether it's Eclipse, Visual Studio, or IntelliJ, he can use our plugin. So ALI, it's not the only technology which is present inside HPALM server, but we provide to developers plugins. So developers can install their plugins. They can connect to ALM from their favorite IDE environment. So without moving out from the tool where they are most productive, so staying in the IDE, they can connect to ALM. They can learn about the tasks, requirements, defects, simply what they are up to, what they are supposed to do. They can implement the code and submit the changes. The IDE plugin will inject the right commit message, and from the commit message, this is exactly the place, the area from which ALI will try to obtain a reference to work items, meaning requirements and defects, to establish the full traceability. So for developers using our plugins, this is extremely simple, and it's kind of done on the background without noticing. So the source code is submitted to a source code management system, and this is for us the repository which we will use to learn more about the code changes. So ALI in the HPALM server will connect to your source code repositories, whether it's Git, Subversion, Perforce, and others. And we will read meta information about the changes to establish the traceability. The next thing which will typically happen is that your build server, or if you call it a CI/CD system, it will take the changes, build them, integrate them to build some artifacts. The implementation of your CI/CD process will be triggered. Some builds will be executed. And again, this is where ALI is involved. And from the ALM server, it will connect to the build server, read information about the builds, about their content, about their status, about the produced build artifacts. So at the end, ALI inside ALM, it knows about all the things happening in your development. You have full information about the source code, about the builds, about the metrics produced by the builds. And based this information is connected to the full ALM model. So then we can provide you with actionable reports, and we can give you some insight into what's happening, what's going on in your development environment. Here is a list of various development tools which are supported by ALI out of the box. You can see that we have plugins for integrated development environment, as I mentioned. So Microsoft Visual Studio, Eclipse, IntelliJ, IDEA. We support a lot of source code management systems and build servers. And we also have specific support for most popular unit testing tools and code coverage tools. ALI, I should also mention that ALI comes up with a software development kit, which is available for free. You can download it, and using the documented API, you can develop your own custom integration with tools which are not supported out of the box. So this was the first part of my presentation, very briefly about ALI. And before actually jumping to the main block of today's presentation, I would like to share a few words about how to use ALI and what is the value that ALI brings you. Let me start with a build summary, which is one of the reports produced by ALI. On this report, we can see various information connected together, and here the idea is to understand what's happening in your build system, and in parallel showing you information related to quality, showing you information about code changes, so that you can see a full picture and you can assess whether the development is following the right trend, or it's necessary to take some course correction and fix some problems, maybe doing kind of quick fix before a serious problem happens. So at the top of the report, you can see basic information about for which data set the report was generated. So in ALM, in the build module, you can very easily filter the builds, and by fine-tuning your data set using standard filtering techniques in ALM, you can narrow your data set, and then you can ask ALI to display you the report. And in this heading, you can see for which data set it was generated. In the top right-hand corner, you can see information about build success rate. So immediately you can have an idea how stable the build process is, how frequent are failures, and average build time. So if the builds are slow, you can spot it immediately and you can think about improving it. Next, the trend chart show you source code management activity. The upper area informs you about amount and type of changes. You can see that it's color coded. So we are using in this report, we are using the same colors as inside HPALM. So the blue area represents changes related to requirements. So it means implementation of new features. The green area represents code changes related to bug fixes. So if a defect was fixed, the corresponding portion of the code will be represented in the green area. And a red line, red area, which is very small in this picture, represents code changes which are not linked to any work item. So there is no clear reason why such a change was introduced to the code base, and probably this is something to investigate. In this particular example, on the left-hand side, you can see that there has been a lot of activity related to implementation of the requirements, which means the blue area is relatively big. Then, because the team entered the stabilization period and focused on bug fixing rather than implementation of the new features, because from the feature point of view, the product was complete. So you can see that immediately the amount of changes related to requirements went down, and you can see that amount of changes related to green area, which means defects, it was higher than in the previous builds. In parallel, down below, you can see trend chart with defects, and you can see that when we started stabilization period and focused on bug fixing instead of implementation of new features, we started mitigating the defect. So more and more activity was related to bug fixing, and the number of the open defects went down through the stabilization period. By looking at these two trend charts, you can get some high-level picture into what's happening in the dev teams, and you can consider whether what is happening, because it really reflects the hard numbers, the changes in your source code repository, information coming from build servers. You can assess whether this is something that you would expect, whether this is something happening according to the plan, or this is an unpleasant surprise. So it in this case, you can see that later on in my trend chart, the amount of changes related to implementation of requirement is low, and this was the desired behavior because we were stabilizing the software. But it might be the opposite case. It might be that the team is overwhelmed with the new defects. They must spend a lot of time fixing the defects, and they don't have enough time for developing new functionalities. So if the expectation is that the team is currently working on the implementation of new features, and you would see a chart similar to the second part of the area in my trend chart, it means that something is wrong, that the team works differently than what is expected. You can very easily spot it, and you can take corrections. Down below the trend charts, you have detailed information about every single build. You can see that in my case I was reviewing nightly builds, and you can label important builds. So if there is a build which is kind of important for you, like a release candidate, or as in my case, the build which was deployed to the demo server, you can label it. You can quickly identify it in the reports, in all the tables, and it helps to communicate clearly information about that build. Later on in the table, you have an insight into what was the status of the build, unit test results, and code coverage for the whole build. If you drill down from the build report to a report for a single build, then you will get to a report which is similar as on this slide. And this gives you insight into a single build. So in my case, you can see at the heading that code coverage of my build was going down to 69%. You can see unit test results. So some unit tests were failing. And you can see summary of the development effort, which means that in my build, most of the implementation was related to requirements, a bit to defects, and there are also some changes which are not linked to anything. I should figure out why they were introduced and why to my code base. In the tables below, you can see summary for each particular requirement and defect, which was part of the build. So for the requirements, you can see the title of the requirement, and you can see also priority, unit test results, coverage, and information about code changes. And the last information for the requirements is about test coverage, as it was measured by the test which you manage in HPALM. So here I would like to highlight that you have full picture, full information about each particular requirement. So it's easier to understand what was changed, and most importantly, the impact of the changes, because you can see what is the title of the requirement. So it's obvious what the requirement is about. You can see its priority. So you can very quickly, by looking at this report, validate whether high priority requirements have also high amount of changes, which means the team focuses there, and most effort is spent with high priority requirements. You can see development metrics for each requirement. So not only the quality as detected by the QA team, meaning reported defects for the requirements and test coverage, but I can see quality of the implementation. So the unit tests are telling me that there are unit tests covering this particular requirement, and I can see code coverage. So actually, how big portion of the implementation of each particular requirement is covered by automatic tests. And of course, amount of changes and who was the author of the changes. Very similar information is shared with the defects. And in the bottom part of the report, you can see information about new defects and closed defects. This means that the new defects are newly detected defects reported by QA team. So when the build was actually deployed to an environment and tested, these were the new defects found. And QA engineers link them to this defect, to this build, which means that now for this build, we have also kind of feedback from QA. The developers will have the feedback and they will know what was the quality from the QA point of view. Similarly for the closed defects, these are defects which were resolved with particularly this build. Next, similar pattern is applied and gives you information about changes in your code base to help you assess impact of your changes. So you can see it in this change impact report. So again, information about code changes, and of course you can easily choose what is the data set, what is the code base that you would like to monitor. So typically you select a release, you can specify a set of branches, you can specify time period, and for this time period, ALI will aggregate all the code changes and show you which defects and requirements were affected with additional information about them. I will not go into the details, but I will highlight one information, which is that if you, for example, want to get answer to a question like what are all the defects which were fixed by the team last month or within the whole release, it's usually not that simple to answer. With ALI, you will have this information at your fingertips. With just a couple of the clicks, you can open the report, and the report will show you always up-to-date information, hard numbers, and you will very easily find what is impact of your changes, whether it's about defects or requirements. If you drill down into details and you would like to review what is the development activity for a specific requirement, then you can use the new tab added by ALI, which is called Development Activity. And in this tab, we inform you about all the development information happening in the source code repositories and build servers. So you can see that I'm obtaining information from a particular build job called ALI 2.0 nightly. So we used ALI for our own development. So this is the real world example from our internal development. You can see status of the last build and like the pointer there. So if you follow the link, you will get to the details of the build. You can see summary for the unit test. So immediately, very easily, I can see that for a particular requirement, there are 77 automatic tests. All of them are successful. I can review information about coverage. If I wanted to get more detailed information, I can follow the links, click the links, and I will get very detailed report about results of unit tests or coverage of all the files and folders implementing this particular requirement. And at the bottom of this screenshot, you can see also information about active developers, which means that ALI gives you information about who was working on that requirement and the contribution. So this is definitely not a tool to blame developers for not changing enough code, but it can give you very good insight into who is most knowledgeable about this requirement, because the guys who modified most of the portion of the implementation of the requirement will very likely be most knowledgeable. And here, very briefly, very briefly about how do we compute development metrics for requirements and defects. So we are using the traceability from the requirements to code, which means change sets. Then for the change sets, we are tracking what are the files which were modified in each particular commit. And from the build server, we are getting information about code, about metrics for each particular file. So putting these data sets together, we can compute what is the code coverage, and in a similar pattern also unit tests for each particular file, for each particular change set, for each particular requirement and defect. As I mentioned previously in my presentation, you can get also summaries for releases. So if you want to know what are really defects or requirements developed in a release, not declared to be developed there with maybe an obsolete status, but if you want to really know what happened in the code base, you can immediately get the answer, and from here you can drill down to get more detailed information. ALI data are integral part of HPALM data model. So the summary charts and other reports which you can produce for other artifacts stored in ALM, like typical ones like requirements, defects, tests. Very similar tools can be used to generate summary reports also for artifacts related to development. So for code changes, frequency of code changes, amount of code changes measured by amount of commits, amount of changed of lines of code, group per developer, group per time periods. So all of this is information. Then you can very easily create a dashboard where you can on one screen monitor activity in the development. And this was very briefly about which functionality is provided by ALI inside ALM. And before jumping to the configuration section, I will share a bit more about IDE plugins. So here we can see Eclipse, and on the right-hand side, we can see a new panel provided by ALI plugin. It's a task list. So this task list gives developers information about defects, requirements, and also tests which are managed in ALM. So if the developer needs to check what are the requirements that I'm supposed to implement, do I have a new defect, he can stay in his IDE. He will be notified, for example, when there is a new defect arriving. He can check the details of the defect inside IDE. He can update the defect, so add commands, extend the description, and he can continue on his implementation. And when he's done, he can submit the changes. Apart from the task list, you can find in the IDE also information about the builds. So without leaving your IDE, you can see status of your build. You can see the build content, so which changes are part of the build. If the files are part of your workspace in your IDE, you can very quickly navigate there, which is handy. And you can see also test results. So again, when a test is failing, it's very easily to navigate to the source code and look into details. When you finish with your changes, you can commit them, and ALI will inject the right commit message. So it will inject a reference to a work item. This is done for you automatically, so developers do not have to care about what is the exact format of the message. It's pre-populated automatically. Developers can, of course, extend it. But here I would like to emphasize that it's not absolutely necessary to use the IDE plugins. So if you, for example, want to submit your changes from command line, this is absolutely a valid option. And for formatting of the commit message, you can use a simpler pattern, which is typically like out of the pattern in ALI is fully configurable, but out of the box, the patterns which are supported are defect, hash and number of the defect and column and arbitrary commit message. So this is an easy way to link a commit, for example, to a defect. So if I'm fixing defect 100, I will just type in my commit message from my command line, defect hash 100 column, this is my fix, and this is enough. AI will properly link the change set to the defect and establish full traceability, connecting it with the build information, connecting it with the metrics coming from the build server. And here you can see an example of plugin for IntelliJ IDEA, and here you can see task board. So if you use HPALM manager and you are following the HL methodology, your teams work according to Scrum or Kanban. You can easily review what's going on and also update it just by moving the cards from left to right. So this is kind of standard for Agile tools, and here it's available within the IDE plugin. The last feature which I would like to mention that the plugins provide is workspace provisioning. In many organizations, it's not that simple for developers to join a new project because it's not that easy to find out what is the right version, what is the right source code repository which holds the code, which branch, where are the relevant build jobs. And with AI, this is dramatically simplified. Assuming that you have connected your IDE plugin to your HPALM server, and AI is configured on your HPALM server, the plugin will read information about development settings for your releases. So as a developer, you can just choose your release in HPALM, and later on, you can just choose from relevant development repositories. So you can just check which repositories and which branches you would like to make part of your workspace, and the same with the build servers and build jobs. And after finishing this wizard, in a couple clicks, in a couple seconds, your workspace is prepared for you, and you can start development. You can become productive immediately as a developer. And now, the main part of the presentation is about setup and configuration. So I will share with you at first some, let's say, prerequisites and basics. Later on, some overall summary of the configuration and also best practices, how to configure AI to get the most value out of it. On this slide, I'm sharing a brief overview of the project customization. So many things in AI are customizable. So there are very reasonable defaults, but if your project is specific and you would like to change, extend some of the aspects of AI, it can be easily done, and it's done in the project customization. So AI comes up with predefined build categories. If you want to choose, if you want to use your ones, you can simply go to this project list and define your own. The next item, AI closed status, this is quite important, and this helps AI to understand which defects do you consider as closed. So this is for AI to compute correctly the reports, we need to know your semantics. And we've learned from many customers that they use different statuses for closed defects. So it's not only closed, but it can be some variants like resolved and so on. So here you can specify it, and AI will correctly understand your semantics of closed and compute the reports. Very similarly for AI QA status, again, you can extend it as you wish, and other items mentioned here. An important prerequisite for setting up of AI integration is AI build agent. Build servers, they do not provide standard API which ALI could use like without extending the build server. So for this reason, ALI comes with ALI build agent, which you can download and plug into your build servers. By plugging in ALI build agent, ALI will extend REST API of your build server, and it can also do real-time pushes of build information. I will get to this later on. So by uploading or integrating ALI build agent into your build server, you will get basic attributes about the builds. So you will see what is the build number, what is the build status, build time, duration, code coverage, unit test results for the whole build. But you will get also information about source code, which is part of that build, and unit test results, not only for the whole build, but for every file which implements tests within your build, and similarly for coverage. For every file which is part of your implementation, you will get information about code coverage. Later on, it's used in the reports. Uploading the ALI agent or installing it, it's quite simple. It's a difference for different build servers, but for Hudson or Jenkins, it's very simple. We have implemented ALI build agent as a standard Jenkins plugin, so you can just download the plugin and install it in a standard way. So there is no difference from other Jenkins plugin. So any Jenkins administrator, for him, it will take only seconds to install ALI build plugin. The configuration of the plugin is then very simple. You can configure it on 2 levels. You can create server-wide configuration, which means setting defaults for all the build jobs. So here you can specify where is your HPALM server and additional attributes, and then you can specify it or override it per project. The server-wide configuration is not mandatory. It's a best practice to specify there to have reasonable default, but if for some reason you would like to specify it only on the level of particular jobs, it's also a valid setup. The next system which plays key role and is a key data source of information for ALI are source code repositories. Here we provide ALI SCM agent, which is optional. So in this case, ALI is able to connect to your source code repositories and extract all information even with your pure untouched source code repository. So without installing ALI agent, without doing any changes, just after enabling ALI on your ALM project, like a second later connecting to your source code repository, you will be able to read the source code changes. This is possible because source code repositories have typically very well-defined remote API, which allows developers to interact with them. And this is exactly the ALI which is used by ALI. So without agent, we can talk to the source code repositories. Although the ALI SCM agent is optional, it's good to think about installing it because it provides 2 interesting features. It allows you to push commits, to push information about changes in real time to your ALM server, which means on your ALM server, you will have real-time information about code changes. So when the change will happen, immediately it will be sent to ALM server, so there is no delay. And whenever you are examining ALI data in ALM server, you will have up-to-date picture. And the second and even more important feature is source code policy enforcement. This feature uses a pre-commit hook in your source code repository, and it intercepts the commits before they happen. In ALM, when the agent is installed and enforcement is enabled, you can not only get insight into what's going on in development, but you can control it. You can define check-in and locking policies, and you can really restrict what is happening to your code base. So, for example, if you would like to lock your code base, it's just a click of a button inside ALM, and you do not have to send emails, you do not have to organize meetings to make everybody aware that we have a problem and no commits are allowed. In ALM, the place where you are getting a full picture about what's happening in the development, you can also control it. And in my screenshot, you can see an example of defining a check-in policy. Very simple. The first checkbox says that you wish ALI agent to validate commit messages. So it means that ALI will validate whether commit messages follow the pattern which is defined in ALI configuration. And if not, it will reject them. So this way you can enforce that developers really follow the practice which you defined. Next, you will mark that code changes should refer to requirements and should refer to defects. So if there is a code change which does not link to a valid requirement or defect in your ALM server, again, it will be rejected. At the bottom, you can see additional message which you can provide when defining the policy. So this is very handy because this will be the message which developers will see when the commit is rejected because of violated policy. In this screenshot, it's not configured, but you can define further restrictions. You can define that only certain types of the requirements are allowed. So you can choose which types of the requirement are allowed to be modified, the same with the priority, and the same with the severity for the defect. And if this is not the case, the commit will be rejected. Now about configuration which is in common to both build and source code integration. So both of the integrations use so-called pull mechanism. It means that ALI inside your ALM server periodically connects to build servers and source code repositories and can read the changes. The best practice is to allow a pull mechanism because it guarantees that there is no data loss. When your source code repository is down or your build server is down or there are some network outages, no information will be lost. So it's best practice to turn pull mechanism always on. Actually, not mandatory. So if you have very good reasons why to turn it off, it's definitely possible. And the best practice suggestion to get most value is to turn both mechanisms, the push and pull mechanism. The push mechanism is implemented in ALI agents and it sends information about changes immediately, both for builds and source code changes. So if you turn on both pull and push mechanisms, it means that you have guarantee of no data loss. And in ALM, you will have always up-to-date information about builds and source code changes. Another suggestion is to define your requirements and defects in advance before configuring in ALI. Because if you plan to configure ALI, import information from your build servers and source code changes, and only later populate your project, ALM project, with requirements and defects, you will end up with data which is not linked together. And the reason is that ALI, when the synchronization is turned on, it will read code changes and try to search for corresponding requirements and defects. And when they do not exist in the project, of course, they will not be linked. So it's important to first create requirements and defects and only then import code changes, which is no-brainer and typical flow for projects which are starting from fresh. But if you would like to turn on ALI for running projects, please keep in mind that first you need requirements and only then enable ALI integration. About releases, ALI supports no release scenario, so you do not have to define your releases, but it's good to define them and use them because it will simplify management, it will allow workspace provisioning, and you will get additional summaries. So the suggestion is definitely define releases inside ALM server, and for releases define what is related source code configuration and build configuration. Another suggestion is to start with build configuration. So when you are defining ALI configuration from the scratch, you might think that it's easier to start with source code configuration, but actually it's the opposite. The most simplest way how to set up ALI is to start with build configuration, because ALI is smart enough to read information about source code repositories from your build server. So we can extract information from the build jobs for you and create the configuration for you automatically. So first you should point ALI to your build server, select the build jobs, define build configuration entities inside ALM server, then discover the ALI SCM configuration automatically, and then you can turn on the synchronization, and you will get information about build, source code changes, and they will link together. We have experienced in the past that some customers doing source code configuration, build configuration manually, they might miss some information and end up in a situation when build and changes are disconnected. So please, if possible, start with build configuration. It's a very simple process. Specifically about build configuration, so as I said, build agent is for build configuration absolute must. If you need to see build information about the builds in your ALM server, you must install ALI build agent into your build server. For Jenkins and Hudson, implement it as standard Jenkins Hudson plugin. Very easy to install. The ALI reads more than basic meta information about builds. So I mean information about test results and coverage, but to have this information correctly propagated to your build server, please make sure that your build server understands it. So in Jenkins, please use plugins which publish unit test results and coverage reports. It means that Jenkins is then aware of this information, and so does ALI, and it can read the information and send it to the ALM server. In typical scenarios, ALI will discover additional configuration needed for code coverage and tests. But if you, for example, use Maven and you do not use standard Maven structure of the project, then there might be some additional information that you need to specify. So out of the box, it should work for you. If your project has a specific structure, uses some specific practices, then there's additional options which you need to configure. The last thing to mention here is that inside build server, you can navigate to ALI endpoints which inform you about extra metadata which ALI extracted from your build server, which means source code information, build information, code coverage, and unit test results. So if you end up in a situation that you cannot see full information in your ALM server, for example, test results are missing, it's good to go to your build server. There is an ALI link. If you follow it, there are links to specific pages giving you information for each particular domain. So if you click for test results, you will see test results known to ALI, and if something is missing there, it's good to start troubleshooting from there probably extending build configuration. Reasonable implementation of the CI. So ALI connects to your build server and obtains as much information as you have there. So the more you automate, the more information is available in your build server, the more you will see in ALI and in your ALM server. It's good to set up a couple of the builds. So to have a fast build which gives quick feedback to the developers, have a nightly build which runs bigger suite of the test, integration build which integrates multiple components and run integration tests. So if you want to have integration tests part of the picture and see their results collected by ALI, it's neat to have such a build implemented and configure it also in ALI, and the same for release or milestone build. For source code management, when you are starting from the scratch and configuring ALI for the first time, there's a couple things to have in mind. So it's good to limit initial size of the repository. By default, ALI will read full history of your source code repository. So if your project is large, it has been running for a long time, it will take some significant time. And it's good to limit it. So you can limit the size of the initial import by specifying initial revision inside ALI configuration. This is very handy because, let's say, for a project running for 10 years, it's good to load 6 months, 1 year of source code history, because typically you will not be interested what happened in a code base 9 years ago. With the SCM agent, as I said, it's optional, but very good to install it because you will have real-time notification and source code enforcement. And with the branches, it's good to follow, to develop in the master branch and have the practice that main release, the next major release is developed always in the master or trunk, simply the main branch which you have. Other branching scenarios are also supported, but this is the simplest one. The tip for ALI plugins, it's optional, so it's absolutely possible to use ALI, get all the value without using the plugins, but it really simplifies the work and makes developers more productive, so it's good to install it. And a small suggestion for agile teams, it's valid to have combination of ALI plus HPALM Manager and ALM, and use synchronizer to synchronize requirements, defects, and releases between ALM and HPALM Manager. And ALI can be used in both of them, and in HPALM Manager you will get some additional views, additional summaries which are relevant for agile teams. I've got to the end of my presentation, so this was just a quick summary, quick introduction, and now we have a time to check question and answers.
So Miroslav, thank you for your presentation today. There are a number of questions that have come in. Can you see them? I've assigned them.
Yes, I can see them.
You can see them.
Yes,
okay,
I can see them. Thank you, Will. So the first question: what does LOC means? LOC, it means lines of code. So this is one of the metrics provided by ALI. So like ALI measures how many lines of the code were modified, deleted, and added, and of course gives you also the sum. So if you are concerned how big portion of a requirement was changed or how big changes are introduced because fixing a defect, you can get into details and you can see exactly how many lines of code, LOC, were changed. This is the information given by ALI. And also what I did not mention in my presentation, but ALI can give you very detailed information about code changes. It provides you a content view for files and diff view. So if metadata about changes is not enough for you, like changed lines of code, but you would like to see more, you can open a diff view, and for any file, ALI will give you side-by-side diff showing you what was exactly changed in that file within a particular commit. Another question: about how does ALI measure unit tests. Are the unit test script saved in ALM? How does it measure results from DB unit, J unit, X unit? Here a bit more insight into what it means unit test. So by unit test in this context, I mean something a bit more broader. It's any automatic test executed by your build server, not necessarily implemented as a JUnit test. It can be integration test. It can be a Selenium test. Any test which you are running in a build server, and the requirement that must be fulfilled to for ALI to understand the test result is that the test must be understandable for the build server. So in Jenkins, this typically means X unit. Jenkins has support for really broad range of different testing framework, and when the test is known to known to Jenkins, typically ALI will be able to understand and interpret the results correctly. In one of the slides which I presented, there was information about tools and frameworks supported out of the box ALI. So for testing tools, you could have seen there JUnit, TestNG, NUnit, and I'm not sure, maybe I missed something. So these are frameworks which are guaranteed to be fully supported. As I said, there is a great chance that other frameworks which run in Jenkins and are understood to Jenkins will also work for you. Part of the question was about where are the scripts stored, where are the tests stored. We can collect test results regardless of the storage of the test. So if the tests are not stored in a source code repository, still we will be able to understand the test results, but it will be limited. We will see the test results only on the level of the build. And if you want to see more detailed information, for example, see test results specifically for a particular requirement or defect, in this case, the test must be stored in the source code repository which is configured in ALI, because only in this case ALI can understand source code changes, it can understand results coming from the build server and connect it together. So the suggestion, the best practice is please store the tests inside source code repository which is monitored by ALI. ALI will inform you about amount of changes in the test implementation, and it will connect it with the test results. So I think we are running out of time. So I would like to remind you that there is a forum open for this program, and you can submit further questions and comments in this forum. So please register and don't hesitate and provide us with feedback, comments, and also ask questions. You can also see what others are up to. So definitely feel free to register and contribute. And probably Bill will give you more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Miroslav, for an exciting presentation. Thank you very much for your time today. This concludes our presentation. As Miroslav mentioned, we have a forum open where you could submit your questions. This is a public forum. For on day one of our expert week, we'll be conducting our sessions, and within this presentation, within this post, you will find a link to the recording, so that you can also listen to the recording afterwards. From day 2 on to day 5, we'll be having our sessions in the private forums with all information I provided in a post in the forums. You can read up on that. So thank you very much for your time today. Miroslav, thank you very much for your time today as well, and hope to see you later on today with other presentations that we'll be conducting and throughout the rest of the week. Thank you for your time, and have a nice day.
Thank you.